الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وكذلك جعلناكم أمة وسطا لتكونوا شهداء على الناس على الناس ويكون الرسول عليكم شهيدا وما جعلنا القبلة التي كنت عليها إلا لنعلم من يتبع الرسول ممن ينقلب على عقبيه وإن كانت لكبيرة إلا على الذين هدى الله وما كان الله ليضيع إيمانكم إن الله بالناس لرؤوف رحيم صدق الله العظيم. Respected elders, dear brothers and sisters, regarding ayat number 143 of Surat al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. And in a similar way, we have made you a very middle ummah, balanced ummah. Ummatan wasata, an ummah that has taken the middle path, striking an equilibrium between the spiritual world and the material world, striking a balance or equilibrium within our ibadah, with our rights towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and fulfilling those rights, and fulfilling the huquq al-ibad, the rights of all those that have rights upon us from amongst the mankind as well. And all of this is لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ, that you may become a witness for mankind, that you'll be able to judge what is right and what is wrong. You'll have this furqan, this criterion between right and wrong, this experience to understand the balance between good and evil and the extremes on both sides. وَيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا, and also that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has made, or He'll make Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam a shaheed and a witness over you. This portion about witnesses, in general, it is speaking about the akhirah, where mankind will be brought, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also bring the Anbiya alayhim as-salam and the and the nations, and witnesses will be brought. The details are mentioned in a few places in the Quran. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the scene of that day, of the day of judgment. وَأَشْرَقَتِ الْأَرْضُ بِنُورِ رَبِّهَا وَوُضِعَ الْكِتَابُ وَجِيءَ بِالنَّبِيِّينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَقُضِيَ بَيْنَهُمْ بِالْحَقِّ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in other ayat of the Quran, on that day the nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will come out and will illuminate everything. وَوُضِعَ الْكِتَابُ, the books will be laid out. And the Nabiyyin, the prophets, and also the Shuhada, the witnesses, will be brought on that day. So this ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Muslim ummah, we will also be brought at the end, so that we will also be able to bear witness for the many nations that came before us. It is our nature as human beings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created a system for us human beings that one is we invent items, we invent things, we manufacture many things, and we also have devices to test and check the capacity or the working or basically the benefit of that particular invention. And this is very common within our vehicles. We can check the air of our tires, or we can test the level of juice that is left in the battery, or we can test other items within the vehicle to check whether the vehicle, in what condition it is in. And many of these kind of devices, they are high tech, and even if a vehicle may be old, it can still read and check the level of that vehicle. Again, you can apply this to any invention. So these kind of testing devices, they kind of give us a gauge. They're like the witness for that item or that invention. So similarly, on the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring us the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and we'll be able to gauge the actions and be witness on that day to the efforts of the Anbiya alayhim as-salam. And also we'll be able to gauge the actions of their aqwam and the reaction of their nations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the next portion of this ayah, ayat number 143, وَمَا جَعَلْنَا الْقِبْلَةَ الَّتِي كُنْتَ عَلَيْهَا إِلَّا لِنَعْلَمَ مَنْ يَتَّبِعُ الرَّسُولَ مِمَّنْ يَنْقَلِبُ عَلَىٰ عَقِبَيْهِ. And we did not make this changing of this qibla, or we did not make this qibla which we have made for you, illa, except لِنَعْلَمَ مَنْ يَتَّبِعُ الرَّسُولَ, so that we may know. Also here we may expose and we may make clear, we may make evident. مَنْ يَتَّبِعُ الرَّسُولَ, who's ready to emulate and follow al-Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, with an open heart, an open mind, and just listen and obey. مِمَّنْ يَنْقَلِبُ عَلَىٰ عَقِبَيْهِ, so we can differentiate and separate them from those مِمَّنْ يَنْقَلِبُ عَلَىٰ عَقِبَيْهِ, from those who will turn on their backs and leave the deen. So this major incident that happened of the tahweed al-qibla, of the change of qibla, this was a test to separate the believers from the munafiqeen, or the hypocrites, to separate the mu'mineen and believers from those who will turn away from this deen. There are a few major incidents in the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam during the lifetime of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, particularly during the time of Nubuwwah and prophethood, there were a few major incidents that became a turning point for the believers in separating those who are sincere in their belief and also exposing those who are munafiqeen, or exposing those who were not really strong in their iman. There were a few major incidents. One of the major incidents was the incident of Isra and Mi'raj, when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was taken on a night journey from Masjid al-Haram, from the Kaaba Baytullah, al Masjid al-Aqsa, to the Masjid al-Aqsa in Palestine, Jerusalem. And then he was taken on the Mi'raj, which he was taken to the seven heavens and beyond. And this particular miracle of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, it made it clear those who had really strong iman. Again, this incident happened in Makkah when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was still in Makkah. So there were many that were mu'mineen, and they were very sincere in their iman. So it really made the iman of the mu'mineen and the Sahaba at that time very strong. And this incident happened before the Hijrah. So when the hukum and command was given of Hijrah, the mu'mineen were already ready to leave, and some of them had already migrated. So the migration and the Hijrah started after this incident, until the Hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, quite some few months or a year after. Another major incident, which was a very clear distinction in separating the mu'mineen from the munafiqeen or the hypocrites, was this incident of Tahweel al-Qibla. And this incident of the Tahweel al-Qibla, it separated the mu'mineen from the munafiqeen, made very clear those who were right, sincere in their iman and in their belief, and also exposed those who had nifaq in their hearts, hypocrisy in their hearts. So this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in this ayah, that the main reason for this Tahweel al-Qibla was kind of a test to see which mu'mineen and believers would be ready to change their Qibla with no questions asked, and to see those who were trying to stir up this question and trying to come up and make excuses or make a big deal out of this. There were even some who made a big deal out of it, the munafiqeen, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it clear that the whole purpose behind all of this was لِنَعْلَمَ مَنْ يَتَّبِعُ الرَّسُولِ, that we may know and we may confirm and we may also expose and make very clear those who are sincere and follow Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam with firm iman. مِمَّنْ يَنْقَلِبُ عَلَىٰ عَقِبَيْهِ, from those who turn away and run on their heels from this deen. وَإِنْ كَانَتْ لَكَبِيرَةً إِلَّا عَلَى الَّذِينَ هَدَى اللَّهُ. And really this was a major incident. It was not some small incident. It was a major incident. It was a heavy thing. It was a very, very big incident. And a very difficult thing to understand, a difficult thing to accept. إِلَّا عَلَى الَّذِينَ هَدَى اللَّهُ, except for those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given them hidayah and guidance. And this was time and again. These kind of incidents happen, these kind of tests happen. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made very clear the iman of Sahaba radiallahu anhu. Around this time was also the incident of the Battle of Badr. Then you have the incident of the Battle of Uhud, of the Ahzab, the Battle of Ahzab and Khandaq and Khaybar. And then the other major incident was the Battle of Tabuk. Along this time, there were other major incidents that took place, which time and again showed the iman of Sahaba radiallahu anhum. But at the same time, these incidents were an exposure in exposing the hypocrisy of the munafiqeen, the hypocrites. Among these also major incidents was also the incident of the case of marriage where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he ended up being given the command to marry the divorced wife of his adopted son. The details are there in Surah Al-Ahzab. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam had adopted a child. And in that adoption, that child grew up to an adult man. Harith radiyallahu anhu. Zayd ibn Harith. Zayd ibn Harith radiyallahu anhu, he grew up, and during this time, Zayd radiyallahu anhu, he, being in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he obviously had accepted Iman, and he stayed in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He was even given the option to go back with his parents when his father came asking for him to come back, but Zayd radiallahu anhu requested to stay, as he really enjoyed the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He was given the permission to stay. And he became an adult. He married Zainab radiallahu anha, who was also a cousin of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And for whatever reason, particularly the social reasons of that time, Zayd radiallahu anhu was not able to hold on to the marriage, and the marriage did not work out. So Zayd radiallahu anhu ended up divorcing his wife. And in that culture of that time, during the culture of the Arab time, if you adopted someone, in that culture, the adoption was almost considered like that person becoming your child. So it was considered a terrible thing if an adopted child divorced someone and then the adopted parents or the adopted father took that girl and married her. So it became a very major incident at that time. It was a very, very major incident. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, commanded him to marry Zainab radiallahu anha, the divorced wife of the adopted son of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the command was very clear, so much so that this is the only Sahabi, Zayd radiallahu anhu, the only Sahabi mentioned by name in the Quran. فَلَمَّا قَضَى زَيْدٌ مِّنْهَا وَطَرًا زَوَّجْنَاكَهَا لِكَيْ لَا يَكُونَ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ حَرَجٌ لِكَيْ لَا يَكُونَ عَلَيْكَ حَرَجٌ. So it was very, very clear within those ayat of Surat Al-Ahzab, in the details you can read in the Tafseer. But this was also a major incident in differentiating the mu'mineen from the munafiqeen. As the munafiqeen, they started spreading rumors about this also. Another major incident was the Waqi'atul Ifk, which is mentioned in detail in Surah An-Nur, where the munafiqeen put an accusation on al-Mu'mineen Aisha Siddiqa radiyallahu anha. And they spread a very terrible rumor about her and ended up causing a lot of stress even to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But that also was one of the major incidents. It was a determining factor in the difference between the believers and those who were munafiqeen and ready to hold on to these kind of strange ideas. So throughout the time of Sahaba radiallahu anhum, particularly at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, there was major incidents that took place, major incidents that happened that tested the iman of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. And the testing of the iman of Sahaba radiallahu anhum was to check and gauge their iman and also strengthen their iman. And through these incidents, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has proven to us believers what kind of iman the Sahaba radiallahu anhum had. Then in the face of all of these adversities, with all of these different tests, all of these difficult tests, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they held on to their iman with no question to ask. And they passed those tests. Many a times, sometimes we make comments that we wish we were also there at the time of Sahaba radiallahu anhum. We all have this wish sometimes. And we wish we were there at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But what is very clear is that if we gauge ourselves and we analyze our own actions in our own iman, we will realize that what kind of iman the Sahaba radiallahu anhum had, and the kind of tests that they were tested with in their iman, it will become very clear to us that our iman is nowhere near that strong. And it would have been a very, very good chance, or a very, very strong chance, that we may have not even held on to our iman at that time because of the difficult type of tests that they were tested with. So this was also one of those major incidents, the tahweed al-qibla, the change of qibla. And throughout the Quran, many of these incidents are mentioned. You'll find them throughout Surat al-Baqarah. In Surah Al-Imran, there's detailed mention of the Battle of Uhud. You find in Surah Al-Anfal and in Surah Tawbah some of the other ghazawat and the difficult situations that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum faced in those ghazawat. You also find in Surah Al-Ahzab the details of the marriage of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam to Zainab radiallahu anha. There's also the details in Surah An-Nur about Waqa'at al-Ifk. And in many other surahs in the Quran, you find other major incidents, very, very difficult incidents. Such incidents that could easily shake the iman of anyone. But the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they were so blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a special type of iman, that in the face of all of these kind of tests, they came out victorious. That is why the iman of Sahaba is very, very special iman. It didn't come easy. So this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned here in this ayah also. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُضِيعَ إِيمَانَكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want to waste your iman. So this is what is mentioned in these ayat, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He made this a determining factor. لِنَعْلَمَ مَنْ يَتَّبِعُ الرَّسُولَ مِمَّنْ يَنْقَلِبُ عَلَىٰ عَقِبَيْهِ. And this is one of those major tests, the tahweed al-qibla, the change of qibla, was one of those major tests that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made, so that He may know, He may make clear, He may expose those who have real true iman, and He may also expose those who will turn on their backs and run away from this deen. وَإِنْ كَانَتْ لَكَبِيرَةً إِلَّا عَلَى الَّذِينَ هَدَى اللَّهِ. And this was definitely a very major thing, a very heavy thing, a very, very difficult situation. إِلَّا عَلَى الَّذِينَ هَدَى اللَّهِ. Except for those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them hidayah and guidance. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُضِيعَ إِيمَانَكُمْ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He does not want to waste your iman. As we know that when something is not used, something is not utilized, something is not in use, so sometimes it gets wasted or it messes up. One of the things that we're going through now is this pandemic. It is almost the end of June 29 or 28, and we're almost at the end of the month of June. We're still faced with this pandemic in the year 2020. Many of us, the vast majority, we have some common sense. So we're told to stay at home and protect ourselves and save our families. So many of us, the vast majority, stay at home. Even if some of the conditions may be okay, or the states open up, or certain things open up, but looking at the numbers of how many are infected and how the infections are rising. So those with common sense and those that understand what is going on, they generally stay at home. So one of the things about staying at home is that we don't use our vehicles as much. So the vehicle is sitting there stationary. So now they have all of these reports from various mechanics about how to make sure that your vehicle doesn't mess up. You don't end up draining the battery completely, or you don't mess up the engine, because sometimes for days on end, we hardly turn on the vehicle. Before, we used to go to work and use the vehicle here and there, drive around. Now, most people are working from home. So the vehicle doesn't get used on a daily basis. Sometimes once a week or twice a week, we hardly turn on the vehicle to go shopping or something. Even that, mashallah, with today's technology, most of the stuff just comes straight to your door. So because the vehicle is standing there, it messes up. Similarly, there are many things in our lives that we don't use, so they mess up. And because of messing up, it's important that we, often at times, we take care of things. If you don't take care of something, so it'll mess up. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, during the lifetime of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, particularly during the time of his nubuwwah, his mission of prophethood, from the age of 40 when he started his mission up until the end of his life, there were various tests that came that tested the iman of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. It also refreshed their iman. So this is also what it has been. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُضِيعَ إِيمَانُكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is not want to waste your iman. So time and again these tests come. But not only for the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. إِنَّ اللَّهَ بِالنَّاسِ لَرَؤُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. Definitely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over mankind, over the people. لَرَؤُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. He's very ra'uf and very rahim. Regarding these sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and their application to our iman, inshallah we'll continue and we'll go more in detail. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and give all of us the tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أما بعد. عن أبي الدرداء رضي الله عنه قال: إني سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول: من سلك طريقا يطلب فيه علما سلك الله به طريقا من طرق الجنة إلى آخر حديث، أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. رواه أبو داود. Sayyidina Abu Darda radiyallahu anhu, he narrates, and this hadith is in the Sunan of Abu Dawood. Sayyidina Abu Darda radiyallahu anhu, he narrates, I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, Man salaka tariqan yatlubu fihi ilman, salaka Allahu bihi tariqan min turuqil jannah. Whosoever travels on a path in search of knowledge, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will enable him to travel on one of the paths to paradise or to Jannah. It's a lengthy hadith, and we were discussing the sifat or the qualities of a talib ilm, a student of ilm, a student of Quran and Sunnah. And we were particularly discussing the qissa or story of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam mentioned in Surah Al-Kahf regarding his meeting with Al-Khadir alayhi salam, Khidr alayhi salam. So in Surah Al-Kahf, there are many lessons to be taken from the story as far as talib ilm is concerned, student of ilm is concerned. First, look at the life of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. When Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he was given nubuwwah or prophethood, and he was told to go to Fir'aun. One of the first things that Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam did was he made dua. There are 2 or 3 places in the Quran where his dua is mentioned. But in Surah Taha, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he made dua very clearly, Rabbi shrah li sadri. Oh my Rabb, oh Allah, expand my, which indirectly means, oh Allah, grant me immense knowledge, more than I have or more than I can understand. So grant me immense knowledge, more knowledge than I have now. So as students of knowledge, we should always seek and make dua for ilm. Because the ilm of deen is not something we can just learn on our own. It is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives as a gift from His side. Then we already went over the first portion of the story where Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam was asked about the most knowledgeable person. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam indirectly mentioned that he was given the most knowledge. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala corrected him and told Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam that you do not have the most knowledge. Now here it is made very clear to us that even if we have immense knowledge, that we should never think we know everything, whether we are the most knowledgeable. We should be humble in our ilm. Otherwise, that ilm will become a means of our destruction. So that is the lesson taken from this portion of the story when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam that you're not the most knowledgeable. There is someone more knowledgeable than you. So we should never ever become arrogant in our ilm. The reaction of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam was not one of arrogance where he felt that he had the most knowledge. Rather, it was one of zeal and shawq that he said, oh Allah, let me meet this person that you have given more knowledge to than you have given to me. Let me meet him. Let me learn from him. Let me benefit from his ilm. So this is the sign of tawadu', the sign of humbleness. And this is what is required and demanded of the students of Quran and Sunnah, or a student of ilm of deen. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he was given an indication as to where that servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he made preparations and he went. He also took his student with him. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he also had a student, Yusha' bin Nun alayhi salam. His name is mentioned in the hadith. Going to the hadith of Bukhari, so his name is mentioned there, Yusha' bin Nun alayhi salam, who was a student of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, and was also given nubuwwah and prophethood afterwards. So after Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam and Sayyidina Harun alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave nubuwwah and prophethood to Yusha' bin Nun alayhi salam. So the suhbah of nubuwwah, the suhbah and companionship with the prophets at that time used to also make people eligible, or make the youth then eligible for prophethood. But Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he took his student with him, was serving him. So he made every preparation that he could. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam made every preparation that he could to go on this lengthy journey. But in that journey, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam made a very unique comment, and that comment is mentioned in the Ayat of Surat al-Kahf. وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِفَتَاهُ. Important was the time, or remember the time when Musa alayhi salam said لِفَتَاهُ to his youth, meaning to Yusha' bin Nun alayhi salam. This is where the story starts in Surat al-Kahf. For those who have memorized or know Surat al-Kahf, this is the ayah where the story starts regarding Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam meeting with Khidr alayhi salam. But Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam makes a comment to Fatahu, to his student Yusha' bin Nun alayhi salam. He makes this comment to him, لا أبرح حتى أبلغ مجمع البحرين أو أمضي حقبا. That I'm never going to stop searching for this servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until I come to the point of the meeting of the oceans, or even one huqub passes. What does this mean? So at that time, it used to be known that the travel of that time was not like the travel of today. But what is very clear is that wherever the oceans meet, these were like the points of the world, where the world is even till today. We have all these oceans. You have the Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean. So you have these oceans, and where they meet on the other side of the ocean is a different kind of people, and on this side of the ocean is a different kind of people. So a different kind of world, a different kind of culture, a different type of people. We know this. On this side of the Atlantic, you have different culture. On that side of the Atlantic, you have a different culture. Same applies with the Pacific Ocean. On this side, you have the American culture. On the other side of the Pacific, you have Japan and China, totally different culture. There's a different kind of world. Again, at the travel of that time, it was not known. If you really wanted to have a long travel to see the other side, it was something else. It was the Majma' al-Bahrain, where the oceans are meeting. And this was known as a very lengthy journey where a person could even lose their life. Even nowadays, traveling in the ocean can become very dangerous. When somebody would make this kind of determination that I'm going to travel the ocean, meaning that in the face of very difficult adversities, I'm going to continue on. I'm not going to think to come back until I've fulfilled or I've completed my quest. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he made one thing very clear to his student, that I am going on this quest and I'm not going to stop until Majma' al-Bahrain, even if I come to the meeting of the oceans. Which means I'm determined to the end of my life to even give my life for this quest, to find this person who has this ilm more than me. أو أمضي حقبة, or even if I have to spend one huqub, I'm not going to stop. What is huqub? Huqub is a term in Arabic that is used for a lifetime. Some things we say that it'll take this person a lifetime to get this. But generally in Arabic, the term huqub is also a period of 80 years. 80 years is generally one lifetime. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he told his student that even if I have to spend a lifetime, one huqub, 80 years, searching for this abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for this ilm that he has, I'm ready to sacrifice that. I'm ready to give that. So that means that his student was also mentally prepared that, okay, if my shaykh, my teacher, the Nabi that I'm following, he's ready to do this kind of sacrifice, I'm also ready then. So giving the whole lifetime, it wasn't a matter of some time. There's a very, very unique understanding for us to understand here, a very unique lesson. And that unique lesson is that when it comes to the ilm of deen, don't try to measure it in time. Sometimes we want these crash courses, this few weekends or few weeks or a few months, and we're going to come back and we're going to be scholars. It doesn't work like that. We need to get this mentality out of our mind. When it comes to the ilm of deen, especially if it is someone who we know has the ilm of deen, then we should not impose our timeline on them. It may take much longer. And also, no two students are the same. There's some who can learn quicker, some who take a little bit longer. So the ilm of deen doesn't work like the ilm of this world. It has a different pace, a very, very different pace. For those who may have some experience teaching even little children, the ilm of deen, it's very different teaching them the ilm of deen than teaching them the regular secular studies. Teaching mathematics or science or something else, it's a different field. When it comes to the ilm of deen, it's a whole different timeline. There's some that pick it up immediately and some who can drag on. Even two brothers are not the same. Some pick it up more quicker than others. So for the ilm of deen, a person has to mentally be ready to spend their whole life to learn. Not a matter of 1 day or 2 days or a few weeks, but this is a whole life-changing experience. So if it's going to change your life, then you have to be mentally ready for a lifetime to be a student of Quran and Sunnah. That's why many of the great mashayikh and ulama, even when they were asked that what is your position? What are your qualifications? And you'll find majority of the mashayikh, they'll tell you we are Muslim. You tell them, no, what are your qualifications in ilm? So they'll tell you we are students of ilm, we're students of Quran and Sunnah. Because it takes a lifetime to learn Quran and Sunnah. So this is the lesson that we must learn from this story, that the ilm of deen is something that one has to be ready to give their life for it. Not something you learn in 1 or 2 days or something you learn in a few weeks. There are certain subjects you can learn, but the mindset should be for a lifetime. That is the lesson, one of the very first lessons that we can take from the story of Surat al-Kahf, as far as being the students of ilm or the students of Quran and Sunnah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of us and give all of us the tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ.